The budget session of Parliament will come to a close tomorrow. The budget session is mainly to transact the financial business of the government. It is marked by three major events: the budget, the appropriation bill, and the finance bill. This budget session was special because there was a fourth major event, the passage of the GST bills. The country expected that at the end of the budget session, thanks to the debates and the information provided by the government, there would be greater clarity about the state of the economy. Unfortunately, there is no such clarity. At the end of the session, we are no wiser than we were at the beginning of the session. On the budget, the Congress party had pointed out that the best that could be said about the budget was the nation was relieved that no more harm was done to the economy. The general consensus was that it was a totally wasted opportunity. It beat the drums to a march that was not there. On the appropriation bill, we had pointed out that the priorities of the government were wrong and the allocation of funds was poor. The most affected sectors programs were defense, agriculture, Maganrega, fertilizer subsidy, food subsidy, and Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. All of them will receive less funds as a percentage of GDP in 2017-18 than they received in 2016-17. On the finance bill, it is widely criticized for including non-financial and non-money matters in the bill in flagrant violation of historically accepted norms and conventions. The finance bill was passed as a money bill, when it will be apparent to anyone familiar with Article 110 of the Constitution that it ceased to be a money bill upon the addition of matters falling outside Article 110. The sole purpose was to avoid a scrutiny of these matters by the Rajya Sabha. It was an assault on the Constitution of India, and we hope that sooner than later the courts will pronounce upon the legality of such devices. We had also pointed out to many unacceptable provisions in the finance bill. As examples, I may cite one, the amendment to the Income Tax Act, that the reason to believe in the case of a search need not be disclosed to any person or authority, and two, the provisions relating to electoral bonds. The first is an example of tax terrorism, and the second is intended to make political funding more opaque and more partial. On the GST bills, we had pointed out that they were imperfect bills, and no attempt was made to make them less imperfect. The Rajya Sabha could have improved the bills, but that opportunity was denied when the government stubbornly turned down the demand that the bills be introduced, debated, and passed as non-money bills. Altogether, from the point of view of understanding and assessing the state of the economy, it was an unsatisfactory session. Nevertheless, throughout the session, the Congress party adopted an attitude of cooperation in the best traditions of democracy. The state of the economy is poor. Four major indicators tell the true story. One, between January 2015 and January 2017, gross bank credit to all industries increased by a meager 7,413 crore rupees, or 0.29%. Two, in the same period, the Index of Industrial Production, IIP, increased by a mere 1.1% from 189.2 to 191.3. Three, growth of gross fixed capital formation was 6.11% in 2015-16. In 2016-17, growth of GFCF plummeted to 0.57%. Four, The actual rate of growth of the economy is moderate, and even that growth is jobless growth. According to the Labour Bureau, only 109,000 jobs were created in 8 job-intensive non-farm sectors during the period April to September 2016. This must be viewed against the promise to create 2 crore jobs every year. Besides issues concerning the economy, there were many issues, social and political, that were raised in both houses of Parliament. I am sure you have questions regarding some of those issues. I shall stop here and take your questions on the budget session of Parliament. Yes. So the goal of 1st of July is impractical as well as undesirable. Millions and millions of micro, small and medium enterprises have to adjust to the new regime. Many of them may simply have no in-house talent or in-house skill to comply with the provisions of the GST law and not make mistakes. Take it from me, thousands of people will make mistakes. They have to learn as they implement the GST law. Secondly, the GSTN, the network, has to prove itself in a trial. A very large sample of returns have to be tried in a trial, and that must be proved. In my view, the wise and correct date will be 1st of October. Allow a trial run of the GSTN. Give enough time to businesses, service providers, as well as sellers of goods to adjust to the new regime, so that when it is ultimately rolled out, it is a reasonably, fairly smooth rollout. 1st October is what many businessmen have told me would be the appropriate date. Well, never predict the future. GST will indeed bring greater efficiency in tax collection. GST will bring more potential taxpayers into the net, and GST will restrict the scope for tax evasion. So in that sense, it will bring more tax revenues, and that will give a boost to the GDP. But on the other hand, in the immediate future, GST will be inflationary. Whether it will be mildly inflationary or highly inflationary, I cannot say. That will depend upon the ultimate rates which the government announces for the goods and services. I have no doubt in my mind that in the medium to long term, GST is extremely beneficial to the country. But in the short term, it might bring us less benefit than the government claims, but I think it will bring us some benefit.
So how short would that short term be? Are you looking at a period of a few months, like a 3-month to 6-month period? Or are you looking at, let's say, somewhere between 6 to 12 months?
It depends on two things. First, it depends on the fitment. As I've said elsewhere, if 70% of goods and 70% of services are fitted into the 18% modal rate, I think the short term could be reasonably short. But if they put more goods in the 28% rate or in the 40% rate and add cesses on top of that, then the short term could actually extend to a longer term. That's point one. Point two, it also depends on how the government implements GST. I have advocated They must implement it with a benign hand. There must be forbearance. Thousands and thousands of people will make mistakes. But if for every mistake, the tax official is unleashed on the unsuspecting taxpayer, there'll be a pushback, there'll be a backlash. When we switched over from the positive list to the negative list in service tax, I called my officers and said, listen, this is a new regime. Many people may not even know that they are service providers and liable to service tax. Therefore, administer this law with a benign hand and show forbearance. If the government shows forbearance to small mistakes, I'm not talking about criminal fraud, small mistakes, if the government shows forbearance and the tax officials apply the law in the first year or so with a benign hand, then I think the short term can be a short term.
Yeah, Mr. Chidambaram, in your statement, there is no mention about demonetization issue. So whether really is a non-issue?
No, it's not a non-issue. Demonetization put an end to black money all over the country except in RK Nagar. I said demonetization put an end to black money all over the country except in RK Nagar in Chennai. Demonetization put an end to counterfeit currency except the ones that are produced according to government in Bangladesh and brought into Bengal. Demonetization has stopped bribes. Nobody gives bribes these days, nobody takes bribes. You should know it. Nobody in the country. 1.3 billion people, nobody is giving a bribe today, nobody is taking a bribe today. So undoubtedly, demonetization is a great success. I don't know who most of the industry or economists are. I'm only going by the figures put out by the Central Statistics Bureau. According to the Central Statistics Bureau, gross value addition in Q1, Q2, and Q3 was 6.89, declined to 6.69, declined to 6.61. And if you count the value addition, leaving out three sectors which are admittedly not affected by demonetization, like government expenditure, the monsoon, and utilities, which accepted old notes, the GVA for the 3 quarters are, and these are important numbers, 7.35, 6.47, 5.73. So even on government's own admission, gross value addition, which is the measure currently used for measuring growth, has declined between Q1 and Q3. It can be nobody's case, let me repeat, it can be nobody's case that Q4 would be any better than Q3. Demonetization took place in Q3. Let's wait for the Q4 figures. You will find it is lower than 5.73. So to say that in the light of these figures, the demonetization has not affected growth, I'm afraid one must be quite challenged to make that statement.
Mr. Chidambaram, your statement says the state of the economy is poor. You have given 4 cases in that.
Yes.
Now, if that is the situation, why has the government not been able to take advantage of the political situation in the country, and why during the elections that you are losing, people obviously have more faith in their idea of the economy than yours?
Well, I'm not sure people vote on any one issue. The BJP has indeed won an election in UP. It has lost an election in Punjab. And according to all independent observers, the BJP came second in Goa and Manipur, except that the governors of the two states thought that they came first. So BJP wins and loses elections. Congress wins and loses elections. You can't relate winning and losing election to the economy. There are other issues. There are social issues, there are political issues. And I must admit that the BJP has successfully, at least in UP, successfully polarized the electorate. It's not a referendum on the economy, it's an election.
Sir, one more question.
Yes.
Under your name it says member CWC. Now, this, when will the CWC take place? And will you be raising something to the CWC? And when do you remember the last CWC when it took place?
Well, I didn't add that member CWC.
No, but it's a good thing you did because it gave me a chance to ask you.
I'm actually a permanent invitee to the CWC. So when the CWC meets, I'm sure they'll let you know when they are meeting. Yes.
So today, apart from this, you were also former journalist. Today, the entire parliament is discussing Kulbhushan Jadhav. First and foremost, what's the official state of the party? And second, sir, RK Singh, the former secretary of Home, is claiming that it's a possibility that Jadhav died during custodial torture, which was meted out to him in Pakistan. And it is a possibility that now Pakistan is coming up with this whole theory, which is a sham, and it is a possibility tomorrow it might be out that he's been hung also. So what's your take on that?
See, I recall a statement by Mr. Sartaaj Aziz on December 2016, where he said that there is not enough evidence to proceed against Kulbhushan. I think you should dig out that statement and carry that statement. I think it was December 7th, 2016. Now, from a statement which says that there is not enough evidence to legally proceed against Kulbhushan, to a death penalty given by a military tribunal whose jurisdiction to try an unarmed foreigner is seriously in doubt, is a huge leap. I think the world knows that this was a kangaroo trial, if a trial took place at all, and the so-called justice meted out to Kulbhushan is sham justice. I think the whole nation condemns Pakistan for going through this mock or kangaroo trial and inflicting the maximum penalty upon an admitted Indian citizen who, according to reports, was perhaps kidnapped from a third country and not arrested in territory controlled by Pakistan. I think we condemn what has happened in Pakistan, and we hope that good sense will prevail and that the death penalty imposed by this sham tribunal will not be carried out. This I'm saying in the fervent hope and prayer that Kulbhushan is still alive.
Is there also a failure on the part of the government to negotiate his release?
Abhipan?
Is there also a failure on the part of the central government to negotiate his release?
Well, I think that will be too strong a statement. I'm sure they must have made efforts. I don't know. But if they have made efforts, I'm sure they will tell Parliament what efforts they made. They should tell Parliament what efforts they made.
But there are news reports suggesting that Pakistan was pressurized by China to do so. What is Congress Party?
Well, I don't think, I can't go by news reports. I think this is an incident where I don't think, China would have a great interest.
The External Affairs Minister told both the houses that 13 times Indian officials wanted consular access, which was denied. One of your colleagues, Shashi Tharoor, said that it's a violation of Geneva Convention. We are not at war against each other, so India should internationalize this issue, how Pakistan has denied basic rights
No, no. If the minister said that we have asked 30 times consular access, I accept that statement. And if Mr. Shashi Tharoor has said this is a violation of Geneva Convention, I'm sure he was speaking from personal knowledge of the matter. At the moment, my concern is that the maximum penalty imposed by the sham tribunal should not be carried out. And I'm saying this again in the fervent hope and prayer that Kulbhushan is still alive.
So how do you look at the option of creating a bad bank?
The bad bank is a bad idea.
So I have one question about the electronic voting machines. You just said that the BJP successfully polarized the electorate in Uttar Pradesh and won. Only yesterday, Congress party approached the election commission and actually attributed its own loss and BJP's victory to tampering of EVMs. And the fact that Punjab also went to election around the same time and Congress won in Punjab. So it's a contradictory situation for the
No,
Congress.
I have read the memorandum. I've got a copy on my iPad. I don't think the memorandum says that we accuse the ruling party of having tampered with the EVMs in a state. What it says is there is overwhelming evidence that EVMs can be tampered with, that EVMs are vulnerable to being manipulated. And therefore, we should go back to the old tried and tested ballot paper system. And we've also proposed an alternative that you can have EVMs along with VVPAT. And we have proposed a second alternative. If it's not possible to acquire so many VVPAT machines in a short time, let's try EVMs in 50 booths, 50% of the booths, and ballot paper in 50% of the booths. We are suggesting various methods by which this widespread suspicion, widespread apprehension that EVMs can be tampered with and EVMs may have been tampered with here and there is put to rest. I've got the memorandum in front of me, and I'm sure you have got copies too.
The Election Commission is not agreed that it can be tampered.
Well, this is what I would call institutional certitude. No institution should be so certain of the rightness of its statement. Institutional certitude is a weakness of every institution. You must be willing to re-examine your position. There is enough evidence that EVMs can be technologically hacked or tampered with. Even the Pentagon was hacked. A guy sitting in Europe is able to hack into all kinds of databases. So why assume that this machine cannot be tampered with? Therefore, it is the duty of the Election Commission to put to rest these apprehensions. Let me look at it another way. Our whole democratic system is a political party-based democratic system, correct? Without a political party, we don't have this kind of democracy. Multiple party-based democratic system. Practically every party, including the BJP of 2014 vintage, as exemplified by GVL Narasimha Rao's book, doubts the impenetrability of the EVM. They have cast doubts on the EVM. If all political parties at some time or other have serious doubts about the EVM, then you should look for alternatives. The alternative doesn't exclude an EVM. It says EVM plus VVPAT or EVM plus ballot. We are proposing several alternatives. I think the Election Commission should not reject it out of hand, but must have the humility to accept the case of the political parties and re-examine its position. Last question, yes. There is already a case in the Supreme Court where the Aadhaar bill, which was passed as a money bill, has been challenged on the ground it violates Article 110. We have still not got a date from the court, although the court said about 6 weeks ago they will hear it in a month. There is already a case. Whether more cases will be filed, I cannot say. Okay, thank you very much.
So you spoke about the RKNL constituency. What about the lowest polling percentage in Srinagar, Jammu Kashmir, which led to defeat of Anantnag polls also? So much so that now...
See, my position in Kashmir is well known. I have been writing, speaking that we are losing Kashmir. In fact, at one point I said we may have nearly lost Kashmir. One of the ministers of the government came down heavily upon him and branded me as an anti-nationalist. Thank God they didn't call it sedition and send me where they sent Kanhaiya Kumar. The point is, both the fact that there has been the lowest polling in, I don't know, 30 years in a constituency, and people are coming out in the streets to chase away polling officers. All this portends that we are going to face even more difficult times in Kashmir. The answer is not using the army and the armed forces and the police. The answer is not a muscular Kashmir policy. The answer is to engage with all stakeholders. That was a promise of the PDP. Please go back and read the PDP's manifesto. The first provocation was the formation of the PDP-BJP government. The very formation of that government was regarded as an unholy alliance, and the people rejected it. Second is the PDP's forgetfulness, or PDP ignoring its own promise that the way forward is to engage all stakeholders. The path that the government of Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir and the central government have taken is a perilous path. This path will not lead to any kind of peace or any kind of engagement with the people. I would once again appeal to the government to reverse course and go back to the original promise that both the central government and the state government will engage all stakeholders in the Kashmir Valley. Thank you.